Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the melee glaive, the Orvius. Now in this weapon series, I take a weapon, I build it out, and I test that weapon on its own merits, meaning I don't mix it with any kind of external factors that would increase weapon performance. That would be things like Warframes using abilities, pets putting statuses on enemies, things like that. I just test the weapon built out by itself, and I let the viewer make their own intelligent conclusions about adding those external things. Now, when I do melee videos, I do add one external, and that is a pet putting statuses on enemies for me, and it is because almost all melee weapons will use a mod called Condition Overload, and Condition Overload requires you to be priming for it to actually do its function. And so that's why I do that on melee videos. However, with glaives, Condition Overload does not work on the traditional glaive setup where you're exploding your glaive. So the actual damage bonuses from Condition Overload don't work on the explosion part of the glaive. Now with the Orvius, I have two builds today. One is a direct attack build, and one is the traditional explosive glaive. So one build will be using Condition Overload, and one build will not be using Condition Overload. And just so I could show them both off equally, I just kept my Hound primer on both of them. That way, they would be equal. You could do an equal comparison. Although the one without Condition Overload, it's not really affecting it too much. Okay, so the Orvius was recommended to us by commenter Skip Street, and that's why we're doing it today. And we have the top commenter of the last video, Quiet Darkness 27, and the first commenter of the last video, Montero U. So we'll go into the Orvius first here, and what we're going to do is we're going to explain the cool and interesting things about this weapon. So let me see if it says it here. Yeah, I guess it says it there. Okay. So holding the melee briefly, we'll do a normal throw and make the weapon hover above an enemy and hold them in place for 3 seconds. They'll take 3 ticks of damage, and then the weapon will explode and doing a forced cold proc. That's kind of cool. It's a little bit niche, though. It's a little bit novel. You're not actually going to be using this super often. And the dudes you actually do want to hold in place, it doesn't work on. It won't work through Overshield. Or not Overshield, sorry, Overguard. So, the big dudes, like an Eximus you would want to hold in place, it doesn't work on him unless his Overguard is down. So that kind of sucks. So for that reason, it's interesting, it's cool, but I almost never use it. So, and again, to activate this, act as though you were going to charge like a normal throw, but don't charge it all the way. Just hold it down for, half a second, let go, it'll go seek an enemy out, and it'll just kind of hold them in place for 3 seconds. If you want to mess around and just see how it does that. Okay, the charged throw bounces 3 times, and it's also going to have a homing effect. The homing effect is kind of cool, but also kind of not cool. It actually negatively affects you sometimes, especially on the explosive attack build. On the direct attack build, it's quite good, and that's why the direct attack build in the Orvius is a completely valid way to play the Orvius. But on the explosive attack, it's actually more of a hindrance, the homing, because you're usually with a traditional glaive build, you're looking to almost throw your glaive above a group of enemies and airburst it above them. But this homes in, so you can't really do that. So, yeah. Okay, let's go over the mods. I'm going to do one build at a time. So we're going to start with the direct attack build. And then I have a pre-recorded 5-minute run on the direct attack. And then we're going to do the explosive attack build. And I have a pre-recorded 5-minute run on the explosive attack. Just because they're both very different, and they required me to do a lot of testing for each one by themselves. So, okay, the direct attack build. We're going to be using Condition Overload. Condition Overload does work on this build. And it's because we're not manually exploding our glaive. Power Throw. So Power Throw gives you +3 punch through, and on consecutive throws, you get plus 100% throw damage, stacking up to 3 times. So plus 300% throw damage at max stacks. This is multiplicative damage, which is gigantic, but it's not multiplicative as some multiplicative sources are. So most multiplicative sources double dip on dot procs, or dot damage, I should say. This one doesn't. So this is multiplicative as far as like damage goes, just not dot damage. Doesn't double dip on dot damage. The power throw using this on the Orvius is a bit of a headache. So power throw is hard to use already. You have to get used. It's not hard to use, but you have to get used to it. If you're new to power throw, you're going to screw it up all the time, or you're not going to like use it appropriately. But once you start using it, it's not too hard. But on the Orvius, especially on the direct attack mode, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. And it's because power throw requires you to catch your glaive when it comes back to you. And on a normal glaive, you throw it out, you explode it, and you know when it's coming back to you. On the Orvius bounce build, which is this one, the direct attack, it's bouncing around. Sometimes it's like homing in on enemies that are close or far. You don't know if it's going to bounce to a dude that's a little bit closer or a little bit farther away. So it's kind of coming back to you at a random time. And so because of that, it's a bit hard to track the actual glaive. And so you're not always going to catch it. Because you also don't want to preemptively hold E to catch your glaive, because that is going to recall your glaive to you. And that'll just kind of negate the whole bouncing effect that it actually has. So power throw is still good. Even if you were only able to maintain 1 stack of power throw, it's still 100% multiplicative damage, which is huge. It's just more of a pain on this glaive than all the other glaives. For that reason, I am not a faction damage person, but for that reason, you could, if you were into faction damage mods, plop your faction damage mod right over power throw. And you would still have your multiplicative damage source. You would have less multiplicative damage than you would with power throw, but the multiplicative damage from faction mods also double dip on dot procs, where power throw doesn't, right? So there's like pros and cons to each. But you wouldn't have the annoying thing where you have to catch your glaive with power throw if you used a faction mod. So that's up to you, though. I'm going to stick with power throw, but because I don't use faction mods. But if you use faction mods, that's an easy switch right there. Okay, Amalgam Organ Shatter is going to be for critical damage and 60% heavy attack wind-up speed. Gladiator Might is going to be for 60% critical damage and 10% melee critical chance per combo multiplier. Fever Strike. So most of our melee builds use melee influence. This one is not using melee influence. This melee build is actually using melee duplicate. So that is the reason we're not going with electric like we do on most melee weapons. So, and the reason is, let me try to explain this here. So the weapon has innate cold. It says viral here, and it's because I have toxic on, but it has innate cold. It gets forced cold procs on explosions. And so to get electric and to consistently proc melee influence, you actually have to spend quite a few mod slots to do that. So it's not super good. Melee influence is amazing, but spending 3 mod slots to proc melee influence is not so good. So because of that, we're just going to say, you know what, forget melee influence for this specific weapon, and we're going to go viral instead. So the weapon has innate cold. We're going to put the big primed Fever Strike on, and it's going to mix to make viral. That's perfect. I'll go to melee duplicate at the end. This is very complicated, but on this weapon, it's actually quite strong. Okay, Volatile Rebound. 100% chance to explode on a bounce. Disables punch through. So this weapon bounces 3 times, and every time it bounces, it's going to explode. The explosion is going to deal half of the heavy attack damage. So pretty decent. Pretty decent for the Orvius. We're going to go Blood Rush for critical chance, stacking with combo multiplier. This is going to be a times 12 glaive build. So the reason this can go to times 12 is because we're not actually manually detonating the glaive. Whenever you manually detonate the glaive, like with a traditional glaive build, you lose all of your heavy attack combo. This one we're not. This is a direct attack. You're throwing it at dudes and it's bouncing around. That's it. So this can get to 12 times. And so Blood Rush is going to give you a large amount of critical chance. Same thing with Weeping Wounds. This is status chance stacking with combo multiplier. This is going to give you a large amount of status chance, which is good because this weapon actually has a high slash weighting. I'm actually going to go back in and out. That way my little side here is kind of clear. There we go. Okay. The stance doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect the throw too much. So you can pick whatever one. For the direct attack mode, I know a lot of times I don't like Whirlwind. I say I don't like Whirlwind. I think it mixes kind of poorly with Power Throw because you have to be able to time when you catch your glaive. But because this weapon, your DPS is basically waiting for the thing to bounce around and come back to you, Whirlwind is quite good on the direct attack mode. There's a really, really good mod for the direct attack mode. So that's why we use it there. Okay, melee duplicate. Something important that a lot of people don't know is this. It says on base critical hits, 100% chance for your attack to strike a second time. Oh my goodness, every hit is 2 hits. That seems really good, and that's how a lot of people read it. But you have to pay attention to the wording. On a base critical hit. A base critical hit is a yellow. It's a yellow crit. It's not a white. It's not an orange. It's not a red. It's a yellow. So melee duplicate is good on weapons that basically produce yellow crits. You know, if you can be at almost 100% yellow crits, maybe even a little bit more, like a little bit into oranges, but not too much, then melee duplicate is amazing. So you may ask yourself, if you've watched some of my other builds, why I'm not using sacrificial steel, because this gives us 220% crit chance. And like, why aren't we using it? Because most of my builds, I have sacrificial steel. It's because we're actually limiting our crit chance to be at the perfect value. We want to be at that perfect value to get the most value out of melee duplicate. So this weapon, the critical chance is about 20%. Blood Rush is 440% of 20, which is like 80 something. So 80 something plus 20 is like 100 and change. And then with Gladiator Might, we get 10% melee critical chance per combo multiplier. So, stacking with combo multiplier, which is 120. 120 of 20 is like 20 and change. So our critical chance with Gladiator Might and Blood Rush is at about like 120 or 130, which is perfect. That is absolutely perfect for melee duplicate. You could also consider taking off Gladiator Might and just being at closer to that exactly 100 point. It's just that Gladiator Might you get a lot of critical damage out of too. So I like Gladiator Might. And it doesn't hurt to be a little bit over the 100 mark. You just don't want to be too far, right? You don't want to be like going into red crits because then you're not going to get any value out of duplicate. You need to be getting yellows for duplicate to kind of do its thing. The other thing with melee duplicate is not only are those attacks hitting twice, but it's also rolling for status twice too. So, you know, a lot of times on this build we have viral. We're going to be getting like 2 viral procs, which is kind of cool. Or slash. This is pretty high in slash too. So that's the direct attack build. I was really hoping that the direct attack build would beat out the traditional explosive attack build that you have on pretty much every glaive. Just because I like variety in the game. I like to have weapons that act differently and work differently. And most of the glaives are just explosive attack builds. And so I was like, oh, maybe the Orvius, because of like the homing effect and everything, like maybe the direct attack's really good. And it performed good, but it didn't beat the explosive attack at the end of the day. Like it did kind of do a little bit less. So, but what I'll do now, I'll switch to the gameplay for the direct attack mode. This is only 5 minutes. I did 5 minutes for each. That way I can kind of shorten the video, so I'm not showing like 10 minutes of each one. So let me go back here. And we're going to go ahead and switch over to the direct attack build. Ready, guys? Here we go. Okay, we're on test 3 for the direct attack Orvius. So let's start the solo mod up again and see how the direct attack does. So far in 2 runs, we've gotten 392, and 390 kills in 5 minutes. So extremely close for those 2 runs. That's a little bit unusual. Usually you're looking at like 100-ish kill difference. So we've had 2 runs that were 2 kills apart. So we'll see what this one gets. If this gets like what is it, 390? So like probably like 300 to like 450. I'd be happy with that number. It'd be consistent to what the other ones were.
Life support has been cut off. They're trying to choke you out.
We could say we got 3 consistent runs. So we'd have like the average kill per minute numbers. There's a lot of subjectivity to it, though. You know, everyone's run's going to be different. Someone might be way better at activating power throw than me, and so they can get better numbers. Or someone might be way worse at activating power throw than me, so they get worse numbers. So, it's all going to be, you know, a bit subjective, but hopefully we can get a roundabout average kill per minute number for the Orvius here, and then we can compare that to the explosive Orvius that we'll do next. I'm doing this one first because it's going to take me time to reform into the explosive Orvius. So my Orvius is going to end up having a little bit extra formers. I'm going to put some status meter on real quick to not get thrown around. I don't want to take too long in the using abilities, though, because I want to be throwing my glaive every second of this, so that way we can get consistent 3 consistent missions. Power throw is a giant pain in the butt on this weapon. On an explosive glaive, it's not too bad because you can kind of time when it comes back. This one, it's a lot harder to time because it's bouncing to multiple enemies. Sometimes those enemies are farther apart. Sometimes they're closer. Sometimes it decides it doesn't want to bounce, and so it's just coming back. So a lot of times you're not at a full 3 stacks of power throw. You're at like 1 stack a lot of times. You still get a ridiculous amount of value out of power throw, even if you're only at 1 stack, because it's multiplicative, but it's just annoying. For that reason, I don't use faction mods, but for that reason, you could just plop a faction mod over power throw and have a less annoying multiplicative damage source on your weapon. For me, though, I'm going to stick with the annoying power throw, and I'm just going to complain about it all the time. That's my plan. Some more status immunity on. And whenever I get a ribbon for this thing, I'll probably put that ribbon over power throw. It won't technically be multiplicative damage, though, so I don't know, maybe. Maybe it'll go over something else, and I'll just keep power throw on and keep complaining about it. I like complaining, you know? I feel like it's one of my hobbies. I feel like that throw didn't go anywhere. Sometimes, like, a throw feels like it does nothing, and some throws do, like, everything. Get staggered. Put some stagger immunity. See a pack down there. Like, that throw seemed like it did a lot. So did that one. That one, not so much. Right. I'm going to, most of my runs that I do when I test stuff, usually like when I do the behind the scenes testing, I ignore the Acolyte because it'll affect the kill per minute numbers. So I'm going to do that here. I'm just going to act as if Malice wasn't here and just keep killing little dudes so we can get a good kill per minute value. We're hoping it to be close to that 390, 392 range that the other 2 runs got. It's probably not going to be that close. That would be really weird if we got 3 runs that were, like, within 5 kills of each other. Get out of here, Malice. Puts the mag bubble on me. I don't even think that works for the glaive. Oh, I'm getting staggered too. That's not good for my run. We got 10 seconds left. Let's try to get a few good throws in, and we'll see where we're at. Probably one more throw. And that'll be 10 minutes. Alright, so we're at 335. 335, which is okay, that's in line, you know, 392, 390, 335. As long as it wasn't like 100 or more kills different, that would be too much of an inconsistency. So this run was 335, we have 392 and 390. Alright, let me abort this here. Oops, sorry. Abort this. Alright, so that was the direct attack gameplay. So now we're going to go over the explosive build for the Orvius, which did end up doing better. This one did end up doing better than the direct attack build, not by much. So the direct attack build, I think I went over it in that pre-recorded video. I got 392, 390, and 335 as my kill counts for 5-minute runs on Steel Path Mott. So mid to high 300s. Okay, so for the explosive attack build, remember that on the explosion, condition overload doesn't work. So that's why we don't use it on the explosive attack build here. Okay, we're going to have sacrificial pressure for flat damage, a little bit of damage to sentience, which is kind of niche, and also a little bit of critical chance. Doesn't say it's critical chance here, but because this is a set mod with sacrificial steel, you actually get a little bit of critical chance. I think it's about like 50-ish. So you could look at this as about 140% flat damage and like 50-ish% crit chance. Sacrificial steel for crit chance. Amalgam organ shatter for crit damage and heavy attack wind-up speed. Power throw for the same reason as the direct attack build. This is a 300% multiplicative damage source. Power throw is easier on explosive attack glaives. It's still a little bit more difficult on this one than other normal glaives because of the homing effect, but it's not that bad on the explosive attack here. Prime Fever Strike, we're doing the same thing. We can't go with influence. I mean, you can go with influence, but you have to mess around with the build and like spend 3 mod slots to get consistent electric, which kind of sucks. So for that reason, if I could build a build out with melee influence, I'll do it because melee influence is amazing. But this one, you have to make so many concessions for melee influence that I think it's just easier to just go with melee duplicate. It's also very strong, not as strong as influence. But in this case, it probably is because we'd have to get rid of 2 things to just be able to put influence up here. So yeah, we go Prime Fever Strike here just for the big primed toxin. It's going to mix with cold to make viral. We're going to go Volatile Quick Return. This is going to give us +3 blast radius. Everything on here, we don't really care about. We don't care about the -4 bounce because this is not a direct attack build. We don't care about the chance to explode in a bounce. The only thing we care about is the +3 blast radius. So just because the Orvius doesn't have a great blast radius either. It's only 4. So by giving +3, it at least gets to 7, which is okay. So Corrupt Charge is for +30 initial combo. So how explosive glaive builds work is that every time you explode your glaive, you lose all of your combo. So the explosive glaives builds can't get to ×12. But initial combo will make it so that you're always at ×2. You just start like baseline at ×2, which is amazing. And if you had a Riven, I think certain Rivens, depending on how high you can get initial combo on your Riven, they can get you to like ×3, maybe ×4. Well, this has a 5 Riven disposition, probably, yeah. So initial combo is pretty decent on Rivens for an explosive attack build. So that's why we use Corrupt Charge. I know it doesn't seem like a lot. Like you look at the direct attack that can get ×12, and you're like, well, that one gets ×12, and we're only getting ×2 on the explosive attack. But it's still a pretty significant amount, though. So ×2 still gives you a significant damage boost, and that's why it's still worth using. We're using Killing Blow for melee attack, melee damage on heavy attack increase. We're always going to be heavy attacking on the explosive build because we're always going to be exploding our glaive. And 60% heavy attack wind-up speed. In the aura slot, doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect the throw of the glaive. If you want to actually use your glaive to like whack dudes with, then it might be worth going into the Simulacrum and checking out Astral Twilight versus Gleaming Talon. But the actual throw and explode and stuff of it is not really going to be affected there. So, all right. And in the Exilus slot, on my explosive builds, I usually like using Dispatch Overdrive, which is on a heavy attack hit, which is all the time because this is a heavy attack build. You get 60% movement speed for 15 seconds. That's just a 60% buff. That's always up, basically. It's not technically a DPS increase because it's just movement speed, but it's something at least, right? The other option is Whirlwind. So Whirlwind increases projectile speed. Whirlwind's really good on the direct attack because a lot of your DPS is just waiting for the thing to like finish bouncing around and coming back to you. On the explosive attack, though, it's pretty quick. Like you throw it, you explode it, it comes back. Throw it, explode it, it comes back. So much quicker to come back to you like anyway, like baseline. And because it's quicker, you know, you want to catch your glaive with power throw anyway. Sometimes Whirlwind could make it a little bit too quick to catch your glaive. So it depends. If you're really good using power throw, you're really good at catching your glaive. If you don't think that extra projectile speed will make it harder, you could put Whirlwind here. And Whirlwind will technically be a DPS increase, whereas Dispatch Overdrive is not a DPS increase. This is just a comfy pick. This will just make it feel a little bit comfier. Okay, and then in the Arcane slot, we're doing the same thing as the direct attack. We're going melee duplicate here, just because to get melee influence to actually like proc appropriately and like consistently on this build, you have to spend a few mods because of the innate cold that this starts with. Unfortunately, the innate cold is actually more of a hindrance, unless you're doing what we're doing here with the toxin, because then the innate cold mixes to make viral, so then it's not too bad. But for a melee influence setup, it's definitely a hindrance to have the innate cold. So we're just going to go with melee duplicate. Same exact reason. With this setup, I don't think we even get to over 100%. Or is it 82%? Is that the right one? I think it is. 82%. So yeah, we're not over 100% here, but we're pretty damn close. So that is the explosive attack setup here. And I have that 5 minutes of gameplay I'm going to show you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to it right now. Okay, this is the third test for the Orvius. We're doing the explosive attack test. That's what we're doing right now. The Exilus is empty because normally for this build, we just use the parkour velocity Exilus because that's really the only good one. Well, there's another decent one, but we're going to leave it empty though because it doesn't really do anything for actually affecting like the weapons viability. So, and it would require Metaforma again. So we're going to do Mott. The last two damage or kill per minute numbers we got was 452 in 5 minutes and 426 in 5 minutes. So we're hoping for a number on this run for in the mid 400s. That'll give us 3 consistent runs.
More powerful than before. Only with true mastery of the Tenno arsenal will you succeed.
There's a status minute on.
They have just shut down all systems. I'm sending life support capsules your way.
There's some spawns. Where are these guys at? Please don't give me a horrible tile set here. Sometimes if you're farming on a tile set and one of the connecting tile sets is a large one, it'll turn your tile set you're in into a bad one. Because dudes will spawn in the large tile set that's adjacent to the one you're in, and they'll take forever to get to you because it's a large tile set, like this one right here. They're spawning in this room, but they're spawning like way the frig back there. So I'm hoping... Hoping this doesn't affect our numbers. It probably will, though, unfortunately. About another minute left. We're hoping to get in the mid 400s for a consistent 3 runs. Really hoping that this... it's not really this tile set, it's the adjacent one that might be screwing us up. I'm hoping that the adjacent tile set is not going to mess this run up. Mess the consistency of it up. Got myself knocked back there. That doesn't help either. Wasting some time getting staggered. Alright, we're at 10 minutes there. 547. Oh my goodness. Thought that was going to be a worse one. Because the tile said it was not a worse one. It was almost 100 kills more. Oh my goodness. Is this the inconsistent one for being too much? Okay, so we had 452, 426, and 548. Huh, that's weird. Is this the inconsistent one for being too high? I don't know. The other two could also be inconsistent for being too low. But regardless, that's our 3 runs. So all 3, though, even the 2 in the 400s did better than the direct attack mode. So, all right, I'll switch back to Salt in the Orbiter. Alright, that was the explosive build gameplay. So as you saw there, it did a lot better than the direct attack. So the direct attack, again, in 3 runs was 392, 390, and 335. And the explosive attack in 3 runs was 452, 426, and 548. That 500, I don't know. I thought I had a bad tile set on that run, and it ended up doing more. So it could have been that the actual 2 previous ones that were in the 400s might have been low outliers. You know, usually if you have 3 numbers and 1 is different than 2, you would assume that the 1 is the outlier and the 2 are the average. But you know, there's always a chance that maybe the 2 low numbers were actually the outliers. So yeah, the explosive build is unfortunately seeming to be better than the direct attack. I was really rooting for the direct attack. I like different stuff in the game. I don't want just everything to feel the same. And as it stands right now, all the glaives I've played with and that I've done my testing on, the traditional glaive explosive build is winning every friggin' time. There's a little bit of a difference on this weapon because you go with melee duplicate instead of influence, but I mean, other than that, it's still a pretty traditional glaive explosion build. The Orvius compared to other glaives, I feel like is a little bit of a loser, and it's because of the homing effect. The homing effect, I feel, makes the explosive glaive suffer. Because, again, most of the time you want to shoot it like in the middle of a group of enemies and kind of airburst it. You can't really do that with the homing effect. It's a big pain in the butt. So, I mean, it's a decent glaive. It easily does steal path. You know, I believe... I forgot exactly where you get the Orvius. Is this the one you get for free? I don't know. But I think it's a pretty easy to get glaive. And so, maybe it's a glaive you get for free that's really good. But I would also like argue that the Zorus you kind of get for free from just doing the story. And the Zorus is amazing. You know, I'd probably use the Zorus all day over the Orvius. So, yeah, that's the video. I just wanted to do those rundowns of those 2 separate builds there. If you guys like the video, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.